What's up? It's Sam Ekstrom, and this is the all-new Wolves Squad Show, where today we discuss Jaden McDaniels' ascension to a top shooter in the league.
Julia Daniels, Care 11 sports anchor and reporter. Slo-Mo's back. What are the Wolves going to do with him?
I'm Jack Borman, co-host of the Locked On Wolves postcast with my man Luke Inman. And today we're going to get into a little bit of why Dante DiVincenzo has been so important to the Timberwolves lately.
Hey guys, I'm Parker Fox, and I'm excited to talk all things Wolves, but my most important fact, Anthony Edwards, clutch player of the year. I believe so.
This is Locked On's Wolves Squad Show, the twice-a-week show where Timberwolves talk gets real. No filters, no fluff. Just raw takes, sharp opinions, and straight-up passion for the game. The way only Locked On Podcast Network knows how. Let's drop some dimes and squad up. The Wolves Squad Show starts now.
What is up? Welcome in. It's the all-new Wolves Squad Show, streaming live on Locked On Wolves. Get the audio free and available wherever you get your podcasts. If you enjoy Ben Beacon's daily 30 minutes, and he will be a part of this squad down the road as well, hopefully you enjoy this hour-long roundtable that we will deliver to you twice a week. We've got former Gopher Parker Fox. He's basically a local radio legend at this point, college basketball stud. We've got Julia Daniels, Care 11, and you know Jack Borman from the postcast. What's up, everybody? I'm Sam Ekstrom, been covering Minnesota sports for over a decade here in town. And we've got Wolves Nuggets, huge win on Sunday to get into. Big addition. Kyle Anderson comes back to the fold, another triumphant return. We talk about his impact and what the playoff rotation could look like. Also, Jaden McDaniels just keeps on absolutely rolling as the number 3 on this team, maybe even the number 2, who knows? And we got the Grizzlies tonight, and the Wolves are once again favored by way too much against a bad team. But let's start with Wolves Nuggets and Parker Fox, a statement win. And it reminds me how irrational and overreactive we get to the regular season because we're so down on this team from game to game. They underachieve. They win ugly. They lose to bad teams. And then you look up and you're like, whoa, they're 11-4 over their past 15, and that's the second best in the West. And they show up in these playoff preview type situations where they need to show effort. They do. They play a great 4 quarters, and they kind of run away from the Nuggets late. It kind of makes some of those down moments we have throughout the regular season feel a little silly when they can show up and do that on Sunday.
Well, you know what? From a fan perspective, when you see that effort that they come out and play with and that determination to win, right? And I think Denver's been a place where the Wolves have had a lot of confidence and have had a lot of success. I think that's a credit to not only Chris Finch, but Tim Conley and their roster construction and finding out ways to beat this team, right? And now Nikola Jokic, he's a mismatch nightmare for everybody. He's going to find a way to get his triple-double. He's probably going to have 30 to 40 points in the game. But if you can just let him do his thing and limit the others, I think Jamal Murray's really an X factor for that team. But the way that you defend him with Dante, with Jaden, with even Nas on switching situations, we found a lot of confidence there in Denver. And I think when you have the ball in Anthony Edwards' hands down the stretch and he's making the type of clutch shots that he's been making all year long, Denver is a really comfortable place for Anthony Edwards.
Jack, what do you like most about that win? Lot to like. You got the pace, you got the bench. You got Jaden doing his thing. What'd you like the most?
Yeah, I think, 2 key areas for me. One, it was great seeing the others step up in this game. I think it's just essential with, when you come out against a Denver team that made it very clear from the jump that they were going to blitz and double Anthony Edwards up top in the pick and roll. That put the onus on everybody else. And you got to give Anthony Edwards a lot of credit for how patient he was in that game. And the Wolves, had in this game, I believe they had 33 assists. They're now 8-0 and they have 32 or more. And the fact that 11 of them came from Rudy and Julius on the short roll and playing in the middle of the floor was really important. And it was also really important that Rudy stayed on the floor. We've seen him get in foul trouble quite a bit going up against Nikola Jokic. And I mean, it's pretty hard not to with someone that's that physical and that skilled. But, he not only contested a bunch of shots in the paint, Sam, but just really impacted things defensively, contested a bunch of shots in the paint. The Wolves now 15-2 when Rudy gets at least 14 rebounds. So for him to be able to make that type of impact was huge. And then I just think it also displayed the value of having a guy like Dante DiVincenzo in the slot next to Anthony Edwards, right? I think this Ant sees a lot of boxes and elbows defense. It puts those guys in the slots in really important positions. And not only did Dante make 5 threes, 4 of them coming in the third quarter, but he also had five assists and no turnovers as a playmaker. He had the ball in his hands more next to Anthony Edwards up top. We know that he's been a really important transition playmaker for this team, is kind of the quote unquote cutoff man in transition. And he just looks super confident. And then, speaking of confidence, the Timberwolves bench was fantastic in this game. They won 38-31 on bench scoring, but they shot 63% from the floor, made 10 of their 14 twos, 5 of their 10 threes. And then I think you see just the impact of Ayo Dosunmu and Bones Highland, just the way that they play with pace and get up the floor and create a bunch of easy baskets for this team, I think was super important. The Wolves won 30-6 in transition in that game. So anything this team can do to generate easy points is super important. And we've seen things get bogged down at times in the half court. So to have 2 guys that coming off the bench in Bones and Ayo kind of have their own moments in this game, but really, I think playing together, playing quickly was very important to this bench, probably having their best performance as a unit since the trade deadline.
Right. Don't look up the Bones and Dosunmu 2-man analytics, because I thought I was going to come up with something great there, and it's like the worst on the team somehow. I don't know how. Those things are weird. Don't look it up. It's bad, but I love it. Because I looked it up because I loved it. I love what Ayo does for Bones, because I think Bones, as maybe not, he's not your 6, he's not your 7, he's your 8, and he thrives in a spot up role. And Ayo stretches the floor, he gets north and south, spot up Bones in the corner, and suddenly you've got something between those two. But Julia, I know you're coming out of twin spring training mode. I'm sorry you had to come back to Minnesota where it's not 75. We apologize to you, but you're back in this Wolves playoff race now. And I assume that the Wolves are on Care 11 coming up here at some point. So I'll make sure to check that out, the over-the-air partner of the Minnesota Timberwolves. But everybody was talking about the bench before the trade deadline. You add Ayo, then you get Conley back. Now you get Slo-Mo in. Do you think that Wolves fans, Julia, should feel good about their reserve unit right now compared to where it was, let's say, early in the year, where you're talking about Rob Dillingham, Terrence Shannon being these go-to guys?
Yeah, for sure. I think also when you bring in a guy like Slo-Mo, maybe for other teams, he isn't making a huge impact, but the Wolves definitely know how to utilize him, especially offensively. I think his ball handling skills and just the way that he moves on the offense and sets a pace for everybody is important. And we've seen that. I mean, we saw it in 2024 with their playoff run into the Western Conference Finals. But I think the Wolves, we knew, especially when the deadline passed, that they weren't going to be making splashy moves, obviously, this season, but they were going to make moves that were going to at least move the needle a little bit. And I think that this is one of those. The Wolves don't need to make huge moves in order to hopefully push themselves past the Western Conference Finals this year, which is something that we've talked about all season, is like, at what point do you have to do that? And if they can make these little moves that are just going to push the needle just enough to get them over the hump, then I think that bringing in a guy like Kyle Anderson is important. I think we saw it in the Nuggets game that Finch is moving towards his playoff rotation where he starts to tighten things up and really rely on the veterans more than he's going to be putting in guys like Terrence Shannon Jr. And we saw it last year too. I mean, Terrence only saw game 3. And so we're seeing him kind of move into that spot too, which I do want to kind of jump back to what you were talking about earlier, because I was talking with our executive producer at Care, Lauren Pogulis, and she's a huge Wolves fan. And we're sitting there watching those ridiculous losses right before the All-Star break. And we're like, but this is like typical Wolves, right? Like after the All-Star break, they're like, right, the playoffs are coming up. We should probably lock in and win some important matchups. And I think that's what we saw on Sunday. I think this is the beginning of getting that ball rolling. We're no longer surprised by that pattern that they have anymore. And we're starting to see it all over again. So, but yeah, going back to bringing Slo-Mo in, I mean, his offensive impact has been huge for the Wolves, maybe not necessarily other teams, but we know that the Wolves know how to utilize him. We know Finch knows how to utilize him. And so I think great addition. I think Wolves fans are excited to have him back.
Yeah, Parker, Wolves Nuggets, very possible playoff matchup. Could be the 4-5, could be the 3-6, could be second round matchup. Seeds 3 through 6 right now. Just shake them up and see where they land. It's a total crapshoot at this point. How do you like the Wolves as constructed? And remember, Nuggets didn't have Gordon in that game on Sunday. Wolves as constructed. How do you like them against that Denver team in a 7-gamer?
Well, I'm glad you brought up the Aaron Gordon bit because I think that's important, right? He's an X factor type of player. He does everything on the court. Strong. He can go to the 5 when Nikola Jokic is on the bench. He can even move to the 3 the way that he's been shooting the 3 ball as well. So I think he's a versatile player for Denver. They definitely missed him last game, but I still favor the Wolves bench. I think that's something that you guys hit on a little bit, and we're seeing what the rotation is now with Io and with Bones and with Nas off the bench. But when Terrence Shannon comes back and gets healthy, I could see him playing some little minutes. I can even see defensive matchups with Jalen Clark out there if Jamal Murray's really got it going on. So I think there's a lot of different ways the Wolves can win. And I think that's something that Chris Finch has in his back pocket, right? Is you don't have to have one formulation or one formula to win, especially over a 7-game playoff series against a team in Denver who, you've had their number, but they're a legit team and they have a player in who I believe is the MVP in Nikola Jokic who can go for 50, 20, and 20 a night. And that's not even exaggerating, which is odd to even say. But he's the type of player that can completely change a game. So you have to find different ways to win. You have to throw different bodies at him. And I think matchups are so important with a guy like Jokic, right? Where you don't know if you want Rudy on him at all times, or, hey, can Nas come in and provide some size? Or do we use the strength of a guy like Julius defensively? And then what kind of energy output does that take on the defensive end? And is that energy kind of taking away from what you can provide on the offensive end? So I think there's a lot of things with Denver that makes them a scary matchup. But if you're Chris Finch, you have to be confident with your bench. And then especially with Dante DiVincenzo, the way he's been playing lately and the way he's been shooting the ball. It's such a difference maker if you can find a guy to put 5, threes in the basket a game and give that, advantage to your squad, because I don't know if Denver is to the level 3-point shooting wise, which the Wolves are. So I think it's got to be one of those high energy, high efforts using your bench type of series if we do see them in the playoffs.
Feels like a good entry point, Jack, for you to give your flowers to Dante DiVincenzo.
Yeah, for sure. I just think that with Dante, I felt a little lonely last year banging the Dante drum with him.
Trade rumors. We were talking about trading him, right? There was legitimate talk.
Not
me.
Right.
Not
me. No, I mean, this is the type of. I'm again happy to not be part of that group, but I mean, you're just starting to see the type of confidence that we saw from him in New York as a guy when he was in New York was up there with Steph Curry as the best high volume 3-point shooter in the NBA, and obviously took a little bit of a step back last season and struggled with with kind of an odd injury. But I think again for Dante, just finding his rhythm since the start of the new year, he's been absolutely tremendous shooting the ball. And yesterday was his 5th straight game making 3 or more 3-pointers. And so I think for Dante to be able to find that rhythm is super important. And then I think too that just kind of cascades down to the better he's shooting the ball, the more attention he's going to see, and hopefully the easier it is for him to be able to play off the catch and then make those playmaking decisions below the arc that we've seen from him the last few games as well. So I think you put all that together on the offensive end of the floor, and then on the defensive end of the floor, he's been, we've talked about, all season as who can kind of replace Nickeil Alexander-Walker as the guy that's going to be not only active every night, but just playing hard every single night. And that's certainly a skill in the NBA, and Dante certainly has it. And it's been really important, I think, to just raise the floor for this Timberwolves team, especially in nights when Randall hasn't had it or Nas hasn't had it, to be able to rely upon him as a guy to just bring the juice every single night on that end of the floor, dive on the floor. We saw it in Denver in the 4th quarter, had 2 huge steals in that game. So being able to not only make an impact the way we've come to know on the offensive end with the high volume 3-point shooting, but being able to mix it up defensively has been really important.
Yeah, Julia, what stands out for me in this game too, and this clip's gone a little bit viral at this point, it's Ant talking about getting doubled. When I'm getting doubled, it's 4-on-3. We like our 4 against their 3. And we marvel at Anthony Edwards when he plays hero ball because he's so good at it. Obviously, thinking back to the Portland game, up by 1, three-pointer, two guys in his face. Chris Finch says, pass the ball. Ant says, this is what I do, right? Leads to a little bit of a blow-up, a little bit of rumor mongering on Twitter, people saying that they're mad at each other. But we love when Ant can do that. But I think it's much better for the Minnesota Timberwolves when you're getting so much help from Dante, from Bones, from Io, and Ant can let the game come to him. He can be an assist man. He can be a creator. Only scored 21 against Denver. Didn't feel like he had to try too hard. Didn't feel like he had to play hero ball. That's when the Wolves are really in rhythm, even though they have arguably they got the player of the week. They got maybe the clutch player of the year in Anthony Edwards.
Well, also, it helps with his clutch player of the year status, right? When the Wolves aren't putting themselves in a position where he has to dig them out of it. And then because there's so many different stats that go into that as well, right? But I always think of it as like the perfect analogy for what the Vikings are trying to do with Justin Jefferson, right? They're trying to create all these other offensive options so that Justin Jefferson isn't drawing double coverage. It's the same. Different game, obviously, but it's the same kind of technique that they're going for here too, right? So it is nice to see Dante ramp up his offense too, in the sense that it does give Anthony Edwards the chance to not necessarily have to be the guy all the time. And that makes, obviously, the Wolves, this is how the game works, makes the Wolves more dangerous on that end of the court too. And also remember when Julius Randle came to the Wolves like a week before the season started, and then it was just terrible. Then he got hurt, and then he came back and he was amazing, and he's been amazing for them ever since then. And then he's played a huge role in that too, where Ant doesn't have to be the guy offensively all the time. But I think also, bringing in a guy when Kyle Anderson will get back out on the court, he will also play a huge role in that too. And we're going to talk about it in a little bit, but Jaden McDaniels, the way that his offense has ramped up this season in particular has also helped Ant out in that way too. I do think it's interesting though that you bring up the dynamic between Chris Finch and Ant too, because I do think they balance themselves very well. They're two strong personalities, but you're going to see that every now and again. You're going to see them not necessarily agree on the decisiveness and the decisions that Ant is going to make on the floor. And that's just something that Finch, I think he knows how to deal with it. I think he probably deals with Ant better than just about any other coach in the NBA would. And it's working out for them. But I do agree with you. Yeah, the way that they're able to spread out the offense more, especially just as the season has progressed, has definitely helped Ant out in a way that he doesn't have to be the guy constantly.
They've PR'd that situation very well, both of them, I think.
Yeah.
I think they've done a great job diffusing any tension that existed. Let's talk about Slo-Mo's return. Kyle Anderson back in the mix, and where he fits in the rotation, whether it's regular season, playoffs, both, or neither. All of that and more coming up. Wolves Squad Show, which today is brought to you by Indeed Sponsored Jobs. If you're in workplace chaos at your small business, the deadlines are stacking up, inbox is overflowing, you're up to here in emails, the one position you have to fill, it's still sitting open, you're getting stressed out, the pressure's on you, it's all on your shoulders. This is a job for sponsored jobs. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for, whether it's skills, experience, location. You're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. You're not leaving it to luck. You're making your own, because in the minute that we've been talking, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching, more time interviewing. Less time searching, more time interviewing with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. You need the right person to cut through the chaos. This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. The listeners of this show, Wolves Squad Show, will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Go there now. Support our show. Say that you heard about Indeed on this show. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Rolling on Wolves Squad Show, the premiere episode, and we're so glad you're with us. Make sure you're checking out Ben Beacon, the daily 30-minute dose of the Minnesota Timberwolves. How about Brent Berry, giving him a shout-out in the Prime game? I think it was last Thursday. Very, very cool. Slo-Mo's back, Julia. I know you're excited to talk about Slo-Mo and how he fits. Spent 2 years with the Minnesota Timberwolves. Then I'm guessing he had a pretty miserable year as a competitive guy as he is, with the tanking Jazz and then the team that's trying to out-tank them, the Grizzlies. Now he comes to Minnesota, gets to be part of a contender.
I just would like to say, I just think it's like he's such a funny character to me, just being, if I'm at availability or something like that. And the first memory that I have of Kyle Anderson is going to some children's charity event. And the kids are there. Rudy's like dunking on these 5-year-olds, but they break everything down at the end. And I haven't, obviously, like, I'm new to the area. I've not been around this team. And, they do the 1, 2, 3 Wolves, whatever. And I've seen him play. We know why he's called Slo-Mo. But when they break it down, they're like 1, 2, 3 Wolves. And then in the background, you hear Kyle Anderson after everybody go, Wolves. And I was like, oh, so we're not just doing this. Like, this is like a whole thing. This is your personality as well. So I just think he's a funny guy. I think he has a great basketball IQ. I think something that like we're missing this season in the media is Nickeil Alexander-Walker like breaking down the game for us. It was always so interesting to hear what he had to say. And I think Kyle Anderson, just from our perspective, is a good guy to talk to in that sense. And he's just an interesting character to begin with. I do think maybe he's going to have a little bit of a different role than he had when he was with the Timberwolves before. I think he played mostly forward. Maybe he'll see some valuable backup center minutes, especially, when Rudy's not out there on the floor. But I think it's just adding to, it's interesting when we were talking about the rotation too, because if you look at the past 2 seasons, they kept it tight when they went into the playoffs because of how young the guys were on their bench. And now we're kind of moving towards a place where, TJ and Jalen Clark, they're older, they're more veteran. They are more veteran guys at this point. And so we're moving to a different space in that. So I'm interested to see how things change for Kyle Anderson, considering the role that he had in 2024. I do think it's going to be different. But I think that, like I said before, he just, he really knows how to set a pace for this offense. And he also defensively can make an impact as well. But, I don't know. I'm interested to see. I think it's going to be different than what Wolves fans are expecting, but I think different in a good way. But I think I got to see it before we comment too much.
Yeah. I mean, same deal with Conley coming back, Parker. I think there's a lot of intangible benefits. I don't know how much it's going to show up on the court. I think that it's a really useful card to have to play when Rudy Gobert's in foul trouble and or Julius Randle's in foul trouble. You have someone who can guard situationally for 6 minutes. He shot 41% from 3 here a few years ago. He's not being asked to do that. He's not going to do that again. This is a niche spot for someone who's familiar, who's going to bring accountability. He's going to know his positioning well, right? Like we're not going to see a lot of highlights. This is going to be a steadying presence, I think, probably more on the defensive end.
Yeah, I think when you look across the NBA, Kyle Anderson, it's not a headline move, right? But it's a playoff texture move. It's a kind of guy who's familiar with your staff. He's familiar with the guys. He's familiar in the training room. I don't think he's here to really change the ceiling, but I think he's here to kind of protect the floor, right? He's here to kind of be whatever you need him to be. He was interviewed not too long ago today, and they asked him about that. They asked him about his role, and he said, I'm willing to do whatever it takes. I think he's aware that this is a team, that this is a playoff caliber, deep playoff caliber team, and however he can help this team, I think it's going to be beneficial. I think he does a lot of things, right? Like first of all, he stabilizes the second unit. He's the kind of guy that can come in, he can initiate offense. He can get, the team into sets when things are getting a little sloppy. He finds ways to, live ball turnovers are so dead, right? And when we talk about live ball turnovers, it's turnovers that lead to direct baskets. So those are dead for teams. And he's a veteran that knows that. So you're going to avoid those type of situations. Second, I think he's a connector. I think by nature, he does a good job of connecting people, connecting players. And he's, like I said earlier, he's familiar with a lot of these guys. And then lastly, it's the defensive versatility for me. Julia mentioned even playing the 5. I don't think that's far off. I think he can play the 5 defensively. And then I think you can move him all the way up to the 2 defensively to guard wings and to chase pin down. So I think he's a guy where we don't know until we see it, just like Julia said. But he's a great piece piece to bring in. And I think Kyle Anderson's a guy that Wolves fans are going to have a lot to cheer for. And who knows, it might be one game in the playoffs where he gives you the best defensive effort you could possibly see. And Wolves fans are going to love and appreciate that.
Solidifying the floor, Jack. I love how Parker put that, because you think about the bench pieces that Finch has had this year and the risk that he ran with all of them. Rob Dillingham, right? It could be jacking up quick shots. It could be getting lost on defense. Terrence Shannon's going to absolutely fly around. He might turn the ball over a couple times. Yohan Berenjay, we love him. He's also a rookie, right? There was this risk that came with some of these young pieces that played their way out of favor with Chris Finch, solidifying the floor. I think Parker put that perfectly.
Yeah, no question about it. I mean, I think it goes to more than just on the court aspects of solidifying the floor, right? I mean, teams that don't have a whole lot of player to player accountability, I think have a pretty low floor on a night-to-night basis. And that's why you've seen the Timberwolves lose some of these pretty horrible games to teams that they should absolutely be taking care of this season. And I just think that that's probably the biggest problem the Timberwolves have, is just their lack of player-led accountability. And Slo-Mo's played with Anthony Edwards, Rudy Gobert, Jaden McDaniels, Naz Reid, and Mike Conley. And I think he's certainly a guy that's going to bring that. I mean, this is a guy that rubbed Rudy Gobert the wrong way by holding him accountable in the course of a game that Rudy Gobert swung on Kyle Anderson. And still to this day talks about how much he loves Kyle Anderson despite despite something like that happening. And that's so rare in the NBA that you can strike such a chord that way, but still command the respect of everybody involved in the huddle, whether it be players, coaches, everybody, you name it. So I think he's certainly going to bring that, and that's going to be really important. And I think it's a different type of voice than you see from Joe Ingles. It's a different type of voice you see from Mike Conley, and he's a huge Chris Finch fan too. I mean, he's actually just had media availability in the last 15, 20 minutes or so, talking about how much he really enjoys playing with, or playing for Chris Finch, and kind of being an extension of Chris Finch on the floor. And look, I mean, with buyout guys, they tend to have very little, if any, impact on the court. But Parker said, I mean, outside of Jaden McDaniels, they don't really have another wing that they can trust to defend more physical ball handlers. I mean, you think about the Western Conference, you have Luka, you have Kevin Durant, you have Kawhi Leonard, you have LeBron, you have Aaron Gordon, Denny Avdia even. If you want to get into, guys that you might see, from a potential play-in matchup. So I would not be surprised one bit if Chris Finch turns to Kyle Anderson as the ninth guy in the playoffs because of it, whether it's to throw a different look at a team or to chip in if someone like Jaden McDaniels or Rudy Gobert is in foul trouble over the course of a game. And I think, again, it's fair to question, like, is Kyle Anderson the same player that he was 2 years ago? Not exactly sure. But 2024 Slo-Mo fit really, really well with, next to Ant and Naz in those lineups. They were a plus 15 net in almost 600 minutes played. And then with Ant and Rudy too, he's shown to be a guy that can really bridge the gap between Rudy and the rest of the team. Is a guy that certainly looks Rudy Gobert out there. Those lineups were plus 11.6 in 482 minutes. And the most important thing about those lineups is the defensive rating in those lineups were less than 105. That's elite. I mean, for context, Oklahoma City's number one in the NBA this season at 106.4. So, in the last part too, they rebounded super well with Kyle Anderson out there. And so I think even if he's a guy that might play the five, like Julia mentioned, he's a guy that's going to rebound and look to get the ball up the floor because he is a great passer. So I think it's fun to have him back. I think I pumped the brakes a little bit just in terms of like how much we might actually see him, because Chris Finch has talked about wanting to get down to an 8-man rotation as much as he can. So I think that's probably the biggest question for me in terms of integrating him back into things.
I will add this.
I forgot about that fight between him and Rudy. I forgot about that.
That was the same game that then Jaden McDaniels went down the tunnel and punched the wall and broke his hand.
That was the same game. Oh,
I did not go to that game. I took that game off to watch Sunday Masters.
Wow.
And that was a tough one to miss.
Who won that Masters? Was it worth it? What year was that?
I think that was your Scotty one. I'm not sure.
The first Scotty.
Was that?
I don't remember.
2023?
I think it was 22.
I think so. Yeah,
Or
I think it was.
was
No,
I
it
think
was 23 because I was
think
here
it was
for it. It was
23.
the end of the
Yeah, I
season.
think it was
yeah,
23.
yeah. They lost in 5 to Denver that year because they had no Jaden.
God, that game. And didn't Jaden like break his hand doing that, right? Isn't that
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, he messed it up. That was wild. Can't believe
Nice.
that happened.
Clearly
I
the
will,
Wolves hadn't been there in a while, you know.
They were learning to be a little more poised. I would argue they're still trying to figure that out. But in 4 games with Memphis, Kyle Anderson was given actually a pretty huge role. They just threw him in. They're like, well, we're hurt all the time, so we need someone
Why
to eat
not?
minutes. He was 15 of 19, 2.5 stocks per game, 3.5 rebounds. I mean, come on, Kyle Anderson, let's go. Does he have number one, is there room for a 9th in the playoff rotation for Chris Finch? Because he dialed it down to 8 in that Denver game, which felt very playoff-like. Is there room for a 9th? Is it only like, press this button in case of emergency? And also, who is getting knocked down a peg, if anyone, because Slo-Mo is here? Is that the end of seeing Jalen Clark? Is it the end of seeing Terrence Shannon?
That's such a tough question to ask because I think so many things are matchup based, right? And I think there's so many different situations within games where you might need a little bit more of Kyle Anderson's height and physicality. And then another game, you might need Jalen Clark to crawl up in someone's shorts and play defense and really get physical and intense and crank it up a little bit. So I think there's a lot of different things that can happen, but that's a good problem to have, right? And it's something that I mentioned. You might just get one Slo-Mo game where he gives you the best effort you've seen. And I think if that happens, then that was a good signing, right? So I think when you look at the playoffs as a whole, you have to really take it game by game. And you have to understand that there's really not going to be a copy and paste type of situation within the playoffs because one, these teams are so good, but two, the coaching staffs are so good and there's so much film breakdown and there's so many little things going on. And as you guys know, the NBA is all about defensive matchups. It's all about creating mismatches. It's all about finding ways to get players to their spots. So if you're playing a team, like the Lakers, let's say, Luka wants to find ways to get to his spots. He wants to try to create mismatches in the pick and roll and exploit those mismatches. So if you can find ways to limit those mismatches, get more, guys on the court that can switch and defend multiple positions, I think that's a benefit. So I do think that the 8-man roster and rotation is something that we're going to continue to see, but that doesn't mean it needs to be the same 8 every single game.
Julia, do you think it speaks to the culture in Minnesota with their staff and with their roster that we continue to see players return voluntarily? Mike Conley returns, Joe Ingles returns, players that are not stars on the team in any way. Naz Reid comes back. He's okay being a 6th man. Kyle Anderson, the latest example. Do you think that speaks to something that is unique and positive about the way that the Wolves are constructed?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it also speaks to just the progress that they've made in the past, 3 seasons? Because I don't think that it was a culture people wanted to come back to even 3 years ago necessarily. I don't think when Rudy came in, he was a great fit personality-wise for this team, but he is now. I mean, they've worked through a lot together. It's just like, this is what being a team is, right? You stick together, you work through the problems that you're having, or maybe the personality problems that you're having on a team, and then you learn to love each other after you work through those problems. And I think that these guys are like the perfect example of that. I also think it's interesting to me when people ask me the question of if the Wolves don't make it past the Western Conference Finals this year, do you think that Chris Finch is out? And I think that is such a hard question to answer because I think he's so instrumental in making sure that all of these personalities work together. And the beauty of covering a guy like Anthony Edwards is he's not going to lie to you about anything. And he has always been so vocal about where he stands, particularly with Finchy, and he talks so highly of him and how there are no superstars on this team for him. These are just guys that he is in charge of, and they like that. I think it works for them. I don't think it worked great for them even a few years ago, but they have moved past that. And I think even when we go into, availabilities, or I go in for a sit down or a one-on-one, guys are happy to be there. But I think it also goes into the fact that they've gotten to a space as a team where guys have their certain routines and they have worked out in a way where they kind of, I don't know. Sometimes I think when you're covering, because obviously I cover all kinds of different pro teams, sometimes the coaching staffs or the training staff or ownership can be too hands-on in the fact that like these guys don't feel like they're adults handling their own careers. And the Wolves have figured out a way where it's like, no, like Julius is going to come in at this time and he's going to do his thing and it works for him. And then the guys are going to come in. Obviously they have their set schedules for certain things that they do together as a team, but the way that they've kind of relinquished power and let the veterans kind of do their thing and figure out what works for them and given them the freedom to do that, I think has also been instrumental in making this team work the way that it does and letting guys just kind of stick to their own routine that works for them. And we're seeing, I mean, that does translate onto the court and success that you see out there too. And so it has been a journey for this team. I don't think it's been easy for them to get to this place, but I do think when guys leave the Timberwolves, they get traded or whatever, I think that they're genuinely sad to go. You don't hear much about guys being excited or asking out or anything like that. And I think that is something to be said about not only Chris Finch, but ownership and the trainers that you have in there and the communications people that you have in there and how they work with the guys. And it's all a huge machine that seems to be working together. Now they've just got to get it to the finals at some point, hopefully.
Get it to the next level. Yeah. And doing all of that with ownership turmoil the last couple of years as well. Pretty impressive.
But you also see the owners so involved too, which, you know, they want, I mean, even when Glenn Taylor was there, Glenn Taylor was very involved, but now you see A-Rod and Mark Lowry, they're very involved too. And the guys seem to really like them. So
I've got some mind-popping Jaden McDaniels stats to share next as the Wolves Squad Show premiere continues. And we are brought to you today by BetterHelp. March is a time to celebrate women, especially around International Women's Day, recognize just how much they carry, what rock stars they are, winning gold medals in some cases, at work and relationships and families, all the unseen roles they step into every day. Easy to celebrate that strength, just as important to make space for their emotional well-being. That's how it goes for all of us. You know, I think about my spouse, all the mental load that she carries, all the things that she does that make our family work. And it makes me think how many of us are also doing the same thing. The roles we play, the expectations we carry, the pressure we don't always talk about. Therapy can help with all of that, creating balance, setting healthy boundaries, supporting your overall well-being. With over 30,000 licensed therapists and more than 6 million people served worldwide, BetterHelp is the world's largest online therapy platform. And it works. Fill out a short questionnaire, get matched with a licensed therapist, and if it's not the right fit, switch at any time. Your emotional well-being matters. Find support and feel lighter in therapy. Sign up, get 10% off at betterhelp.com/LockedOnNBA. That's betterhelp.com/LockedOnNBA. Welcome back, Wolves Squad Show. Again, I'm Sam Ekstrom. Glad you're with us on this maiden voyage of this brand new twice-a-week, hour-long Wolves Roundtable show. All right, Jaden McDaniels, he's a baller. We know this. I filtered out all of the shooters in the league that have 600 or more field goal attempts this year. So trying to get rid of that small sample size fluff, trying to get rid of the Rudy Goberts who just dunk it. So it's 80 people. Jaden McDaniels is sixth in field goal percentage at 52.2. He's only behind Zion, Jokic, Holmgren, Chet, and Najee Marshall. Also of those 80, he's got the second highest three-point percentage behind Bobby Portis. Jack Borman. I mean, I think we've known Jaden McDaniels had a pretty deep bag that he could tap into, but the consistency with which he's doing it this year has him up with the Jokic's, the Chets, the SGAs, in just raw shooting data. Smaller sample sizes, not high volume, but incredible efficiency.
Yeah, I think sometimes you got to go back to how these guys started out, right? I think a lot of people forget that Jaden McDaniels was a consensus 5-star, top 10 prospect in his class because of what he was able to do as an offensive player growing up in Seattle. But the three-point shooting is unquestionably, I think, what is kind of fueling his rise to being a legit number 2 option for this Timberwolves team. I mean, he's shooting 44.3% from three this year. It's the best high volume, of qualifying guys, 3-point shooting percentage in the NBA this season. He's number 2 in catch and shoot 3-point percentage among guys taking at least 100, behind Ant, who's shooting 53%, which is crazy. And it's a pretty sizable jump. I mean, Jaden's best season before this was 39.8% in 22-23. And that was the only other season among his 6 NBA seasons where he's shooting more than 33% from three. So it's important to note too, like, it's not a volume thing. It's not like he's just only taking 1 3 a game and shooting it a lot better. I mean, his volume this year is similar to every other year in his career, which has been pretty consistent, taking between 3 and 4 a game. And I think a big part of it too is that he has the ball in his hands a lot more. I think Chris Finch, you look at the rotation data for the Timberwolves, Chris Finch is playing him way more at the start of the second quarter, the start of the fourth quarter, than this season that he has in any other season in his career. Those are minutes when Ant and Julius both generally sit. That's something that, Luke and I talked about a lot last season, is something we wanted to see more of. And I think that just creates more of an opportunity for him to be a relied upon scorer, playing beside Bones and Io and Nas. And I think, too, his defenses commit more resources to him. He's done a really good job as a playmaker. He's averaging a career high 3 assists a game. And then you want to look at, Parker can obviously speak to how important it is to have guys that hit you in the shooting pocket and find you when you're open in key scoring spots. I mean, his teammates are shooting, 74% effective field goal percentage off of his passes. So league average effective field goal percentage is about 54%. So the fact that his teammates are shooting such a high clip off of his passes, I think just speaks to him being able to get them the ball in spots where they're able to knock down really efficient shots. So it's really a really well-rounded, I think, jump from Jaden McDaniels. That is certainly the foundation of that is certainly his 3-point shooting, but I think playing in the middle of the floor is just kind of cascaded that growth to every facet of his offensive game.
Yep. More fun with stats here, Parker. So just out of thin air, I just said, okay, I'm going to look at how many times has Jaden McDaniels attempted more than 10 shots in a game and been 60% or better on those shots. Because it does feel like more and more often he's having games like he did against Denver on Sunday where, he's 9 of 12 with 20 points. The efficiency is incredible. So I looked it up. He's done that 55 times in his career. And the Wolves are 37 and 18 when it happens. Like, when Jaden goes off, the Wolves usually win. And then I said, well, how often is Anthony Edwards doing that? Different role, higher volume, much more active, much more on ball, all of the stipulations. Anthony Edwards has only done that 39 times. Wow. So Jaden with more frequency has these type of just super efficient scoring games than an Anthony Edwards. That's not real. I'm not trying to make a hot take here. I'm just pointing out how the efficiency of Jaden McDaniels can be a real driver of this team's success.
Yeah, I mean, I love that you brought it up. That's something we talked about in our locker rooms all the time, right? When you're facing, opponents as an individual, we would always say, if they're going to score 20 points, make sure they're trying to take 18 or 19 field goals to do that, right? So you're talking about efficiency from really a third option guy. We kind of highlighted it, maybe a second option. I think when you look at this Wolves team, there's no question that Julius and Ant are your 1-2 and Jaden's your 3. But I think the decisiveness that we've seen from Jaden, I think early in his career, he would kind of catch, hesitate, reset, and now it's either catch and shoot, it's catch and shoot, drive a closeout, one dribble pull up, or find ways to go get on the rim. He's got so much length and he's got such a great leaping ability, and I'm glad Jack brought it up too, highlighting his high school and his early career. Like, this isn't a guy that was some not really good, like, just defense. Like Jaden McDaniels was a stud offensively. Like, I actually remember, I think it was about 4 years ago, it was on my birthday. It was former Nate Knight, Gopher, and we were shopping at the Mall of America, and we actually ran into Jaden and his girl. So we went on about our day and we went shopping with them for a little bit. And then I went home and I looked on YouTube and I looked up Jaden McDaniels high school highlights, and I was just in awe about what I was watching from just a skill standpoint, a ball handling standpoint, a finishing standpoint. And now we see the shooting really coming into fruition. So Jaden's not just a defender. He's so much more than just a defender. And especially when you have ways to Anthony Edwards creates so much attention, right? We talk about it all the time. When you can find ways to play off the ball, play off the dribble, and I think Jaden's really at his best in transition, finishing at the rim and finding players for open shots.
I was preparing for this segment, and my hunch was if I go back and look at rookie year Jaden McDaniels, it's going to look real different. He's going to look gangly. He's going to have a hitch in his shot. So I went back and I watched just straight highlight reel, which can be a little deceiving. But I just wanted to see like what his high moments were as a rookie. And I was reminded that he actually had a lot of the same stuff in his game. He had the Euro step. He had the decel. He could score off the dribble. His release was really good. Like I remembered it being slower. It was actually really pure. I think he's just doing it more regularly, more consistently. He's getting more, he's empowered to do it more in the offense, but he's really had that skill set in him the whole time. We've seen the evolution, like of his game, Julia, over these years. And we've also had this perception of him as this silent assassin. You're in the locker room. Have you observed like a shift in his personality as he's gotten more important to this team as the years have gone on, or is he still that same guy behind the scenes?
No, he's still the same guy. I mean, we see every availability that he does, and it's still that's just who he is. And like his skills, they've always been there, right? But I do think, we've seen I think this season in particular has been such a step for him in his career where other teams are now looking at him and they're like, oh, this Jaden McDaniels guy, we could build something around him. And that's new. We haven't seen a lot of that before. I think, people that are really into the analytics of everything knew that there was potential there. But I also think something that we don't necessarily talk about a lot, but I sat down with Chris Finch early in the season, and I just wanted to ask him about, because Julius Randle has had such an impact just in his own game, bringing it to the Wolves, but the impact that Julius Randle has had on the young guys of this team has been, it's immeasurable, the impact that he's had. And when I asked Finchy, I said, what kind of impact as a veteran and a leader does Julius bring? I expected him to talk about, because he talked about it last year during the postseason, about how Ant's work ethic had completely changed and the way that he watches film has changed because Julius is there. But he actually went in depth about the impact that Julius has had on Jaden's game. And his, we just talked about it for 10 minutes, how his offense has really stepped up. But Julius has been instrumental in that. And I think it's not only just him, I don't know if role model is the right word, because, it's not like these guys are like, there's a huge difference in their age, but he has kind of set the tone and the example of like going in early, doing different things to kind of prepare himself before the team stuff starts. And Julius and Ant, Jaden and Ant have actually really benefited from that and taken from Julius's prep work. And I think that that's something that maybe people don't know a ton about, is that like, he came in and he challenged these young guys to really get their work ethic up, and not saying that the work ethic wasn't there before, but it's just changed the way that they've prepared. And I think that we are seeing that translate into Jaden McDaniels' game. One thing I also wanted to point out is like, I get on Reddit sometimes and I go down rabbit holes of things, and especially when it comes to like fan bases. And I had seen this Reddit post about Jaden McDaniels from 3 years ago. And I think it's so telling about who he is now. And it says, for better or worse, offense is what makes someone a star in the eyes of the public, media, and team executives. How many defense-first players get max contracts? Not as many as their offensive counterparts, and that's for certain. McDaniels, to this point, has been a good role player on that end, but a few tweaks in skill development and usage could turn him into an all-around stud and a perfect fit next to ascending superstar Anthony Edwards. And that's from 3 years ago. And I think it kind of goes back to what you were saying too, Sam, of like, you look back on his early years in the league, and the skills were there. He had it all in him. I think it just, is a compliment to him, the training staff, and the guys around him, that they've been able to pull out the best of him. And I don't think we've seen the best of Jaden McDaniels yet, but we are definitely, he's on the uphill incline of his career. And I think he's definitely in the market. Other teams would be looking at him and trying to get him on their team at some point. I know Wolves fans don't want to hear that, but he's a valuable guy. And he's becoming more valuable as time progresses.
You know what's awesome? The Wolves have him for 3 more years after this at less than $30 million per year. Jack, it's got to be turning into one of the better contracts in the NBA, because Jaden McDaniels is, let's say that 30 teams, 8 players deep, 240 rotation players in the NBA. Is Jaden McDaniels a top 30 player, top 50? Where would you put a number on it? Where does he stand right now, do you think, in the NBA?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly think that he's one of the 50 most valuable players in the NBA. I think when you consider the fact that, not only is he becoming just a plug and play offensive option that has become one of the better mismatch killers in the league. You see a lot of other teams try to stick small guards on him, like Denver. You saw Jamal Murray and Tim Hardaway Jr. trying to guard Jaden McDaniels. Didn't really have a whole lot of success. You saw him get into the mid-range, elevate, score. He made all 9 of his 2-point field goal attempts in that game. So I think you're seeing him do more of that. But it's the versatility defensively. I actually think Jaden's been worse as a wing defender this year than a lot of people are giving him credit for. But I think he's been utterly dominant as an interior defender. And there have been more times when he's been playing the 5 defensively in those lineups next to Julius and Naz. And the way that he's able to protect the rim and rebound at a super high level is really impressive. And to me, he's a better interior defender than perimeter defender. And he's one of the, probably 10, 15 best perimeter defenders in the NBA. And so when you just combine the versatility of what he's able to do on both ends of the floor, it's extremely rare that teams have a guy like that. But he's also a guy that doesn't make a stink at all about shooting 8 shots instead of 16 shots. And I think that that's super important. And I think the average fan really, probably doesn't understand how those types of dynamics factor into the fabric of a team and how happy everybody is on a day-to-day basis. And like Jaden McDaniels just loves playing basketball with his 2 best friends, Anthony Edwards and Naz Reid. And that's super underrated to have. And I think, teams around the league certainly understand that. And I think it's also really important too. Like you want to talk about contracts that the Timberwolves gave Jaden that contract, maybe when a lot of teams might have balked at that number, and the Timberwolves really believed in his potential, but it looks great now. And I mean, Anthony Edwards and Jaden McDaniels too have the same agent, Bill Duffy, who's one of the real heavy hitters in the NBA. So I think the fact that Jaden's taken a step forward, he's doing it while he's getting paid, and everybody's really happy, I think just is cool. And it's a great sign that the Timberwolves, 2 most important players in the long term, Ant and Jaden, both really happy, both playing at a super high level, and certainly doesn't hurt that they have the same agent, which I think helps all of those dynamics at play.
Been a pretty positive show so far, but I will head into the final segment telling you why the Timberwolves are favored by way too much tonight against Memphis. That's next. We are brought to you today by FanDuel. College basketball is nonstop. Big games, tight spreads, momentum swings every single night. You got the early tip-offs, the late-night West Coast shootouts. There's always action on the board at FanDuel, and they're giving you a way to turn that energy into even bigger potential wins with a college basketball parlay profit boost. Build any college hoops parlay you want. You got rivalry games, ranked matchups. You've got conference tournaments coming up, obviously. Mix the spreads, the totals, the player props to match how you see the slate playing out. Apply that profit boost when you really believe in that parlay. Bump up the potential payout. I'm obviously looking at the futures as well in college basketball. I kind of like Florida at plus 800 to win the whole thing. I also like Parker Fox's future brother-in-law to lead Iowa State at plus 2,200 to a title. I think that's a good sneaky one. All of that is available at FanDuel. Go safe, go bold, ride with the team you've been following all season. It's your parlay, your style, and there's more upside now with that profit boost. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. FanDuel.com. FanDuel, play your game. Wolves and Grizzlies tonight. It's back at Target Center. I assume Jack Borman will be there, maybe Julia Daniels as well. The Wolves are favored on FanDuel, at least earlier. It was 14. I've seen it 14.5 in some other places. This is a death knell. This is terrible news. This is awful. I did a little bit of against the spread research. So this year when the Wolves are home favorites, they are 24th in the league in cover percentage. Last year, they were 20th in cover percentage as home favorites, and the year before that, 23rd. This is a serious problem. Now, I would guess if you filtered that to double-digit favorites, I couldn't figure that out, how to do that. I bet it's like 29th or 30th. The Timberwolves against teams they have no business losing to, bound to struggle, sometimes lose, certainly not cover. Parker, I'm worried about tonight against a Grizzlies team that does not care about winning. I'm still worried.
I hate that we even have to think about this, have this conversation, because it should be, it should be your classic. Let's take care of business here. Let's go about our business. Let's do our jobs. I will be in attendance tonight. I'm excited to get back to Target Center after being, in Italy for a couple weeks. The Frost Olympians are getting honored tonight at the game, so that's going to be fun. So if you're there, make sure you say hello. They'll have their gold medals on them. Those things are heavy, so give them a check. But nonetheless, the Grizzlies are in town, and this is a Grizzlies team that's if you look up the definition of beat up, you find this Grizzlies team, because no Ja Morant, no Zach Edey, no KCP, Brandon Clark. We can go down the list. I don't know if Aldama's playing tonight. Jack probably has more information on that. But nonetheless, this is a team that there's going to be opportunities for some Grizzlies players to come in tonight and stir the pot up a little bit. I think if you're the Wolves, it has to be that mature approach, right? It has to be that seasoned veteran type approach of, hey, we're back home. We've won 3 straight, and we're going to take care of business tonight against an undermanned Grizzlies team. It doesn't need to be an Anthony Edwards 40-point, let me put on a show. This could be a team effort, and hopefully it's a situation where you go into the fourth quarter up, 20 points, and you can find ways to get more guys added to this roster, this rotation. Maybe a Jalen Clark, maybe more minutes for a Bones or Naz Reid type of game. So it's a spooky one. I hate that we have to mention that it's a spooky one, but if you're the Timberwolves, just mature approach, find ways to take care of business tonight at home.
Yeah, Julia, the Wolves are 11-4 in the last 15, but within those 15, I think we've had gripes about a third of those games, because they had a really stupid win at the Clippers, which they had no business being close. They lost to the Pelicans at home. Yep. They lost to these same undermanned Grizzlies on the road, although I think they had Jaren Jackson Jr. And they also got blown out twice at home in that stretch. So even in this period of relative success for the Timberwolves, these trap games continue to be a problem. And there's no bigger trap game than when you're coming off a playoff atmosphere in Denver. You've got a good Toronto team coming up on Thursday. You've got to survive 48 minutes tonight.
Yeah, I mean, what I was going to say is they have to keep the same mentality that they had playing Denver into this game. But, this is year, 4 of the Wolves. It's just like, all right, sometimes you're going to lose the games that you're supposed to win. And it's just like the personality of this group. I don't know. I 100% agree with both of you guys in saying, like, it's ridiculous that we have to sit here and think this way, but it's just, what we're accustomed to. It is what we have been trained to expect. 14.5 points is what I saw everywhere I checked. And I also think that that's insane and also terrifying for Wolves fans, but who knows? Maybe they're turning a new leaf. Maybe they can keep the ball rolling, or maybe they're overconfident and feeling good coming off this win over the Nuggets, and they just absolutely screw the pooch tonight at Target Center in front of all their fans and in front of gold medal winning Olympians. So
yeah, don't embarrass yourselves. Don't do
right,
that.
Like do it for the ladies. It's Women's History Month. Let's do it for the ladies.
Jack, the refrain gets tiresome. And this is probably the most serious part of it, is that after these games, it's the same thing from Finch. It's the same thing from the players. Ant, owns it, but he's got kind of a smirk on his face. It's just a little bit wearying to hear the same things. And I'm being a hypocrite. I'm saying that we overreact about this stuff too much, but it would just be great to see just the ability for them to walk the talk and actually do what they say they're going to do next time.
Yeah, for sure. I think, again, the Timberwolves, if the Timberwolves play hard for 48 minutes, they'll cover the spread. That's what I'm saying. And if they don't cover the spread, I think that's indicative of the fact that they weren't playing hard for 48 minutes. And the Timberwolves have had these stretches of where they get up, more than 15 points, and then they just kind of take their foot off the gas. And that situation where I think, as Parker mentioned, it would be a good opportunity to get some of the younger guys or, guys that have been out of the rotation, at least a stint of 3, 4, 5 minutes, because that those guys are going to come in and play hard just because they've been sitting and watching and want their opportunity to be able to, make an imprint on the game. But, I just think for Memphis tonight, they don't have KCP, they don't have Zach Edey, no John Morant. Ty Jerome has missed the last 2 games. Santi Aldama's missed the last 10 games. He's only played twice since MLK Day. Cedric Howard's missed the last 7 games. So, Santi and Cedric are both questionable tonight. I think if you talk about guys mixing it up, we've seen Santi Aldama and Rudy Gobert. I don't think there's a whole lot of love lost between Spain and France. And that certainly has spilled out into the court. So I think too, it helps when there's a little bit more animosity and kind of games within the game. And I think that, funny enough, bringing some of those guys back would help the seriousness of this Timberwolves team, which is unfortunate. But again, I also think too, at some point we got to blame the players. This coaching staff, I know what goes into a scout. I know all the work that goes into it. The stats are delivered, and the game plan is delivered the exact same way to the players. It's been the exact same ever since Chris Finch took over. And at some point, you just gotta expect players to come in and play hard. And we just haven't gotten that. And I think that a lot of this becomes fire Finch, whenever they don't bring it and play well. But at some point, you gotta just find it within yourself to come and play hard every single night. And I think that, helps that you get a guy like Kyle Anderson back, having him kind of some good vibes. Everybody's been playing well. You're coming off a game where pretty much everybody in the rotation played really well. So I think, again, it's just on to the players. So you're going to play hard for 48 minutes or not, and we'll find out.
This is my dream for tonight, and I'm going to manifest it. I want a standing ovation with 3 minutes to go as Finch clears the bench. Kyle Anderson gets to make his debut. Mike Conley gets minutes. Joe Ingles gets minutes. I want Clark in there. I want Berenger in there. I want the bench cleared. Because we don't have Juzang anymore. We don't have Dillingham. We don't have Leonard Miller. The end of the bench guys are leaving, right? I want a real, big professional final 5 guys to come in and close this game out up by 25. That's my dream for tonight.
There will be no standing ovation in that scenario, but you could see the rest of it.
A standing O for Slo-Mo?
Oh, I think there'll be a standing O. There's a standing O for Mike Conley when Mike came back, and things are not too pleased.
Okay, I would argue that Mike is a way bigger deal coming back than Kyle Anderson. I don't think he's going to get a standing O from Wolves fans. Come on.
This fan base is in love with Joe Ingles. You think they're not also in love with?
Yeah, but they see Joe Ingles. This is. I don't think
hopefully they're just up. Hopefully they're up 30 and everybody's just on their way home, and there's no need.
Yeah,
for
everyone's already left.
We could go to bed early, and all is well in Timberwolves land.
This feels like a night where there's going to be some free throws for chicken on the line.
I like that.
Oh yeah, and then I can make another TikTok letting everyone know the freebies for the week.
So everybody's going to the game tonight. It sounds like, except me.
I'm not going.
I'll
be at home.
Oh.
I'll be watching.
I am off today, actually. So.
Oh, enjoy your day off.
Got to take a day off.
Even though we made you work. Thanks for showing up. Thanks for watching, everybody. Great debut. Wolves Squad Show. We're back on Thursday. We'll do this generally Tuesdays and Thursdays. We'll work Ben Beacon into the crew as well, our Locked On Wolves host. But big thanks to Jack Parker and Julia. I'm Sam Ekstrom. Enjoy the game tonight, and we'll be back here on the #1 Sports Podcast Network and the Wolves Squad Show.